Welcome to the New Rules for Work Labs, where we're rewriting the rules of work. In our lab, we glean insights from the world's foremost minds, exploring leadership, team dynamics, creativity, artificial intelligence, and more. Join us as we dissect, analyze, and incubate ideas shaping the future workplace. Stick around to learn how we turn these insights into practical activities. Get ready for a journey into the future of work. This is the New Rules for Work Labs, where insights meet action.
We've been focused on how to tackle overwhelm at work in response to a lot of the feedback from our clients, which is saying this is the thing that they are struggling with most right now. Too much change, too many tasks, too many competing priorities. How do you make sense of it all? We've shared some simple techniques and interviewed people who are working on this from a research and practice perspective. So this guide brings all of that together into a conversation guide you can use with your team.
This is a simple 3-step process that you don't need any preparation beforehand. You can go right in with your team and you can begin brainstorming. And by going through the 3 simple steps, you will have a working plan and some solutions to reduce the overwhelming items you have on your team. The first step in this process is to visualize and find the patterns. Starting with a blank space, each team member is going to brainstorm all of the tasks, the items, the projects, the activities that are on your to-do list that are competing for your time.
In this case, we're showing you how this would look in Miro. And if Miro is something you use, you are going to be welcome to copy the board that we have here. Don't feel like you need to do it this way, though. The whole point is just to get a picture of what's going on so that you can talk about it, so that you can see the patterns. If Dave and I are trying to figure out who's going to do what to get this thing published, we can put it on the wall and I can say, hey, I thought I was editing the video. And he's, no, I've edited the video, right? We can figure those things out. So you can use Miro board like this. You can use sticky notes on a real wall. You can use a pen and draw on pieces of paper and rip them up and shake them around. Use a whiteboard. It really doesn't matter what you do as long as everybody in the group can add to the map at the same time and it's around.
So once you've got a complete list and you've had some discussion, you can then move over into this activity called Circles in Soup. And Circles in Soup is all about understanding your role in addressing those items that might be causing you overwhelm. So you can use the drawing we have here, but this is a simple set of 3 concentric circles at a whiteboard. You can draw 3 circles there. The innermost circle are all of the activities that you and your team own. You have complete control over. You can do with them what you like. The next circle out would be for the activities that you influence. There's a shared set of control, or there are other owners of a process or of a project or of a task. And then the soup, the outermost circle, are those items that nobody's quite sure who has control over. The idea with this activity is to take all of those brainstormed items and tasks and put them into the appropriate circle, whether you control them, whether you influence them, or whether nobody's quite sure who has ownership of them.
This one came from Diana Larson and Esther Derby. We interviewed Diana about the origins of this method earlier, and it really comes into play when the team is feeling like there's so much coming in at us and we can't do anything about it. We're powerless in this situation to make changes. The example she gives is a development team that is dealing with a vice president who keeps running in and suggesting new features in the middle of their attempt to try and get the last set of features released. And that probably translates to a lot of teams doing a lot of different work. I've seen this come into play in meetings when teams feel like they have to go to all the meetings where they've been called in to report to some director or they're on some project team or whatever it might be. And they needed to take a look and say, okay, which meetings do we actually control? And which meetings are we being invited into? And then for those that are we're not in charge of them, what can we do to change how we show up? To influence how those meetings get. Very different conversation than, there's nothing we can.
Which brings us to the third step in this process, which is beginning to take action on the things we own, maybe the ones we influence, and maybe the ones that we have no control over. That's what stop, speed up, and slow down is about. The items you would put in the stop category would be the ones that you're gonna drop and you're gonna leave them stopped or dropped until something breaks or somebody raises their hand and notices that you've stopped doing that thing. But there's a good chance that nothing's going to break and nobody's going to say anything. Speed up. These are things that you can make easier by reducing the friction involved. So maybe over time, a particular process has gotten too cumbersome. This is, and I really like the way you put this, Elise. It's balancing between effort, risk, and productivity. And oftentimes, there's almost too much risk mitigation involved in a process for to justify the effort involved in it. So, are there things you can pull back
No,
and still
absolutely.
essentially have the same risk coverage, but you can reduce the number of steps involved? And then slow down for the activities that it's be for other people, perhaps to take your time. So, how might you put good friction in to reduce the overwhelm of a particular task? So, overcomable barrier, of course, can you put in place to make the process or these?
And we were inspired to create these categories based on our conversation with Bob Sutton and Rebecca Hines and a preview of Bob's upcoming book on friction, where he shares a whole bunch of examples about how you can either release friction and help ease a process which has become overwhelming or add some to create some of those safety barriers. I know for me in the speed up category, it is reminiscent of places where you will see dates and rules and requisition papers show up as an effort to say, let's say, control costs. But if you look at it carefully, asking somebody to go through a requisition process to get a new pair of gloves at the factory, which takes that operator off of the factory line for maybe a half an hour for a $5 pair of gloves, is a ridiculous process where you need to reduce and remove that stage gate, that approval process to speed things up, keep productivity flowing. And Dave, you had some examples of that.
So, if a company is having a candidate interview, this is a lot of interviewing for a candidate to do. So, it causes candidate frustration, but it also takes up a lot of time on the part of the company to interview this person. So, instituting a policy that says we do 4 interviews for a candidate. And if you want to do more than 4 interviews, you have to write and receive written approval from the vice president of human resources in order to have any more than 4 interviews. So, if you really need it, you can get it done. It's not an impossible task. It's a barrier that can't be overcome, but it will reduce the overall bad friction on the task while still allowing for those exceptions where needed.
That's great. And I think that's an example that actually came true in Google that Bob mentioned in his book, right? They did something very similar to that.
Yes.
Even a simpler example on a personal level is when you set up a tool that people can use to put a meeting on your calendar, as opposed to allowing them to just schedule you any old time they feel like it, right? So that you can then block time off that you don't want to be in meetings for doing focus work. Now, and I mentioned that from a personal standpoint, but that's something teams can do too. Our team isn't available to meet with you on Wednesdays. Easy, easy. Little bit of friction, big reward.
So, a simple 3-step process that takes you from brainstorming all of the tasks on your overwhelm list, moving the circles in soup where you can see which tasks you control absolutely, which ones you influence, and then assigning solutions for those tasks are either stop, speed up, or slow down.
There is also a PDF guide that includes these steps, breaks them down a little bit differently, but essentially these same steps, and some sample questions to help you get started with the discussion in your team. Finally, one step that we didn't include in this Miro board that you absolutely should include when you do this in real life is the conversation about exactly who is going to do what to turn your solutions into a reality. So make sure you leave knowing if something's going to stop, how do you stop it and who's going to make sure it stops? If you're going to block your calendar, who's blocking the calendar for everybody? When will that be done? Make sure you walk out with those things and then say thank you to everybody in that call, because if you've made each other's lives easier, that is a fabulous way to spend your day.
For more activities like tackling team overwhelm, check out labs.newrulesforwork.com. Thank you for joining us in the lab. A quick nod to Podrick, our behind-the-scenes maestro, for making each episode possible. If you've enjoyed the ideas we've explored today and want to put them into action, check out our companion newsletter at labs.newrulesforwork.com for the practical activities and additional resources. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback is the catalyst for our ongoing journey into the future of work. Thank you once again for joining us. We'll see you next time in the lab.